Good evening and welcome to this live Ask Me Anything About Property Investing. My name is Saj Hussain and I'm here every Monday evening at 8:30 p.m. to answer your questions about investing in property. So if you've got a question for me about investing in property, make sure you put it in the comment section on whichever platform you're watching on. So we're live on very different platforms on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, whichever platform you're on, whichever platform you're watching on, pop a question in and my trusted assistants over there, Khalid, will hopefully fire off the question onto the screen for us and we'll get those answered for you this evening. So this is something we've been doing for a little while now. Every Monday evening, we took a little bit of a break. Now we're back on. And so really pleased to be back and doing these, getting some great feedback. And at the moment, I think one of the things that we're really excited about is a date, which is the 9th of November. And the reason we're excited about the 9th of November, because that's the date for the relaunch of our monthly property meet. And so I'll be restarting in Birmingham. So make sure you've got that in your diary so we can meet up with 100 plus other property investors to network with like-minded people, learn about property. And also we've got an amazing headline speaker, someone who's been doing property probably since I was in my nappies, very experienced guy. And so over the next few days, we'll be letting you know exactly who that is as well. So let's get our first question up if we have on the screen at the moment. We're just waiting for Khalid. So in fact, let me know which platform you're watching on and how that's going. You can hear me okay. You can see me okay. We've got a question on, so hopefully you can see and hear me okay. This is from Asama Properties on YouTube. Hi Saj, let me start again. Hi Saj, what is your minimum investment to invest in one of your deals? So there's a couple of different ways people can invest with me. And one is straightforward loans for lending for projects that I'm doing, which is a minimum of £50,000. And the returns can vary from 6 to 16% as an annualized return per year. It really depends on how the deal is structured, what deal it is, how long the money is needed for. So it can vary quite considerably, but just as a ballpark indication in terms of that's how that works. Now, with regards to partnering with me on projects as a joint venture partner, where we're sharing the risk and the rewards as well in terms of that particular deal, that tends to be a minimum investment of £350,000. And those tend to be properties where we might be flipping them on, or we might be keeping them in the portfolio. Now, my intention is when I'm working with longer term to do a number of deals. It might be a handful of deals we do over a period of time, but the intention is it's a long-term relationship, and that's how I like to try and work with my investors. Often with the lending of funds to project, it can be short-term. People invest in maybe one or two projects, and then maybe they want to go off and do their own thing, or maybe whilst they're waiting to find a deal, they're making their funds work harder for them. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea in terms of how that works. So there's more details on my website over here. I'll get that right in a moment. So you can have a look on there. That'll give you some details about working with me. And if you're interested in investing with me, fill in the form there, and then we can have a chat to see if it's something we can do together. So our next question is on Instagram, which is Khalid just popped up. Bogdan, is it possible to do land flipping whilst in a job? I want to get into development eventually. However, should I get a few service accommodation rent to rent for cash flow to get out my job, or can I start sourcing land? So here's the thing, you can start sourcing land at any point. It's about, one is having the desire to be able to kind of persevere with property and challenges, because it's not straightforward. Be completely transparent about that. It is hard work, but the rewards are phenomenal. So as long as you're prepared to persevere with it and you've got the drive and the ambition, that's one key thing. Then, of course, you need the knowledge in terms of how to do the deals, how to structure the deals, how to oversee them to the completion, how to do value add. So the how-to part, the knowledge aspect, is really important as well. And then, of course, the third, or one of many other things, the third thing is, how much time you've got to be able to put into this. So, for example, you mentioned you're working in a full-time job. You might have a limited amount of time. So maybe it's something you can do in the evenings. So this applies to whichever strategy that you're doing. Whether it's sourcing land that you want to flip on, whether it's a service accommodation on a rent-to-rent basis, whatever strategy is, you need to allocate some time, you need to build some knowledge, you need to be driven and focused, and make sure you're committed to make that work. Now, when I started out in property about 15 years ago, the biggest mistake that I made at the time is I was trying to do lots of different strategies at the same time. I was trying to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that strategy and a little bit of this one over here. And the grand result of that was not achieving anything for some time. For the first couple of years, it was really a challenge because I was just trying so many different things but not getting a result. And the real shift happened when I started focusing on doing one strategy really well, getting good results, building that up, and then going on to do something else, adding that on or layering that on into the business. That's how it's worked for me, and that's how I've found it's been the most effective way for me to be able to build the business. And what I started with was sourcing property. I was sourcing property deals, and I was selling them on to other people, charging a fee for that. And what that enabled me to do is get some experience in terms of not only marketing for deals, but speaking to vendors, speaking to agents as well, structuring these deals in a creative way, working with the solicitors in terms of getting those transactions completed. All that gave me an enormous amount of knowledge and experience quite quickly, because literally in the deep end trying to get these deals done. Now, from that, what I was able to do is start partnering with other people rather than just selling the deals to them, was partnering with them to start to buy some of these deals. And some of those we were flipping on, some of those we were putting in the portfolio as a buy to let. Now, that's the route that I follow. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to follow the same route, because ultimately, we all have, a different amount of time, a different amount of money that we started with, a different level of experience, contact, resources. All these things effectively go into the pot when your recipe to success, as it were. So you've got to look at which things have you got more strength with in terms of, if you're somebody that's very good at building that knowledge and understanding and the technicalities on how to do some of these deals, or it may be that you're very good with systems, it may be you're very good with people. Whatever those strengths are, then you find a strategy that suits you in order to do that. So a very long-winded answer to your question, but ultimately it's a case I would just pick one, whichever one that you feel that you resonate with, whichever one you feel you could probably do the best with, and pick that one and then focus on that, and then really put the blinkers on and stick to it and start building the results in that, building success in that before you start looking at something else. So I hope that helps and answer your question there for you. So our next question's on YouTube, which is Zahida. What is the process to source off-plan deals? Is it good for lazy investors? So off-plan deals are really when you're buying property that hasn't yet been built. It's essentially just a plan, a piece of paper. You're buying into a vision of something that's going to be created, something that's going to be built that doesn't exist right now. So when we roll the clock back, say 15 years, when I first got started, there used to be a lot of off-plan investment, trading, flipping, investing that was going on. And ultimately what people were doing at that time is they'd buy something that was off-plan, that was apartment in a tower block that's due to be built in 2 years' time. They'd commit to that. And so as that was starting to be built, house prices were going up at the time, prices were rising relatively quickly. And what they would do, they'd probably sell it on to somebody else before the building was maybe even complete. Or as soon as it was complete, they'd sell it on to somebody else. And now, so this is a great way of being able to flip on at that time. But of course, those strategies at the top end in terms of risk as well, because with the new build, for example, apartments, you pay a premium in terms of what you're getting compared to, say, a regular traditional, Victorian 2-bedroom house, for instance. You pay a premium on a 2-bedroom apartment versus an old 2-bedroom house. Now, which is better? Well, there's all different views and opinions of which might be better. Personally, I would go for the house each and every time, because I think, you have the freehold, you control what happens with that property, you can add the value. And a leasehold apartment, you're restricted in terms of what you can do with it, in the sense of how much value you can add. You need permission from freeholder with regard to what you want to do with it, any changes you might want to make. The lease decreases over time as well. So, all these things have an impact. I think about it as like buying a brand new car. If you're buying a brand new car, you've got to be prepared to pay a premium for that car. It's brand new. As soon as you drive it off the forecourt, the price will be less than what you paid for it. The value drops pretty much immediately. And it's a little bit similar to new build property. So personally, when it comes to new build apartments, I don't think they're a good investment. If you're building them and selling them, that's fine. But if you're buying them as investments, I think there's other better investments that you can do. When you talk about a lazy investor, you've got to think about what is it ultimately that you want? Why are you investing? What return expectations have you got? And what promises have the agents given you in terms of the off-plan property? Now, you've got the agent and you've got the developer as well. The agent is effectively a salesperson. Their job is to sell that property. The developer is to build it out and sell it for the maximum profit they possibly can. So some developers and agents are better than others. So you have to make your own mind up in terms of the promises they're making you, how much you think they'll be able to deliver on those. I'm just thinking, I hope I haven't confused you, but just giving you really my opinion in terms of what I would do there, Zahida. So let's get our next question up, which is on TikTok.
From Official KSU, can you please explain the Inner Circle program in more detail on TikTok?
Okay, so the Inner Circle program is my mentorship program, which is where I support people over a 12-month period to help them really progress in their property journey, or as I talk about, you minimize the risks that you're going to face in property and you accelerate the results. That's effectively what the mentorship program is. And the way it works, it's really about supporting people in the implementation of knowledge. So within the Inner Circle itself, the mastermind group, that is really more about support. We have different separate training programs that we do, so where you build the knowledge, and in the Inner Circle, you're essentially being supported in the implementation of that knowledge. Because when I started learning about property, I realized that actually there's the information part in terms of how to do something. Then there's the implementation, where you go out and implement that strategy and you try and get the results. And sometimes you face challenges and questions. How do I do this? I'm not sure, how we deal with this particular problem, or someone's got a question here. I don't know what to say to the agent. That's where the support is really beneficial, when you're out there doing it. And that's really how the program works. It's not for everybody. It's quite an investment that you're making in yourself, really, for me to support you over 12 months. And if you want to learn more about it, again, if you visit the website just up here, sajhussain.com, there's a section on there in terms of mentoring with Saj. I'll give you more details of how that works, and it's application based. So we look to see if you're a good fit and we're a good fit for you. Because if I think I can't help you, there's really no point in really even sort of trying to explore it further. And being quite frank with you, more people get declined for that than get accepted on it, because my focus is to do the very best I can to help the people I think will succeed to get the best possible results. So let's get our next question up. This is on YouTube, Ali Shah. Hi Saj, Ali here. How do we know where and what's the best area for a property to buy to let? Do you think it's wise to buy leasehold or freehold, or doesn't it matter? So Ali, I just answered the question just earlier on about freehold and leasehold. My preference is freehold. It doesn't mean that leasehold deals don't work. For example, you might be down, in London, for example, and it's really difficult to be able to get onto the property ladder with a freehold house, and it may be a leasehold apartment is the only option available. Just my preference is freehold, particularly as an investor. You have more control of what's going on of that particular asset. And sometimes it's a case of, yes, you might be based in London, but you might look further afield to get better deals. And people talk about the further north you go, the cheaper property gets. It does, but there's so many other variables to think about, which ties in with your question about where's the best place to invest. So when I think about Birmingham, for example, which is where we're based, and in this case, where do we invest within Birmingham? There are so many pockets within Birmingham as an area, in terms of where you can find cheaper property, where you'd find property that's maybe cheaper to buy to get your foot onto the ladder, but it may not be the best place in terms of, you may not get the best tenants there. You probably won't get the best capital appreciation there over time as well. So for me, what I try and look for is, where are we going to get a balance? Where are we going to get a balance where the property is not super expensive to buy in the first place? So it's not in the best areas, because often those properties are super pricey. But you're looking for areas where people are aspiring to get into. They're on the peripheries of the best areas. So they're fairly nice-ish areas, but certainly not the best areas. And with those areas, you're much more likely to get good capital appreciation over time. Things that we look for is where there's investments in infrastructure happenings. For example, again, Birmingham, HS2 is a major investment that's happening to get HS2 up and running. So there's a huge amount of development that's happening around that, and also the knock-on effects that has, other developments that will happen. There ultimately means that you can travel from Birmingham to London in a much quicker time than you can right now. So these things will impact prices over time. And sometimes there's short-term investment that's happening. But what I'm really looking for is long-term infrastructure improvements, big shopping centres going up, new roads, connections, These are the things that will be appealing to the people that are there, will want to encourage people to move into the area. Those are things that I think that you can really see where an area will improve over time, and that's where you'll get good capital growth. So ultimately with buy to let, what is it we're trying to do? We're trying to create some cash flow, some income each and every month, so some rental income, but over time we want that property value to increase. And that's why we invest in property long term, not because we're making 150 quid or 250 quid a month on rental profit. You're doing it because long term that property will be worth 100, 150, 200,000 pounds more than you've paid for it today. So to stand the best chance of that, you need to be in the areas where there's likely to be better capital growth in those areas. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that gives you some clarity around best places to invest. And also I've got a video on the YouTube channel just here. If you look at my YouTube channel, there's some videos there on location and finding the best places to invest as well. So have a look at that as well. So if you're not already a subscriber to my YouTube channel, I strongly encourage you to nip over to my YouTube channel, Saj Hussain, and have a look at some of the videos on there. There's probably about 260 plus videos really helping you build your knowledge, build your experience in property, where I explain things in more detail, much more than often we can in a live Q&A like this. Okay, so our next question's on YouTube. El Maso, what is your view on purchasing a property with signs of structural movement, leave well alone or opposite? So with structural movement, essentially it means that the property's structural integrity has been compromised. And what we mean by that is that it might not be as safe or as solid as it was originally built. That could be for many, many reasons. It could be that, for example, drains have collapsed over time, the property started to sink. It could be some construction work that was done that was of a very poor standard and the property starting to crack in places. There's so many reasons as to why a property could have structural issues and structural movement. For example, large trees near a property, the roots can impact the structure of a property as well. So when we're looking at a property like that, so personally speaking, I'm quite happy to look at those deals. I'm quite happy to consider them and review them. But is that the right thing for everybody to do? So let's just analyze that for a moment. Well, firstly, what we've got to look at is what's the asking price of that property and what's the problem with it. So the asking price in comparison to what the market value is, let's say the asking price is 100,000 for that property with some structural problems. And let's say a property let's say in good order would be 130,000 pounds. When I say in good order, a comparable property, same sort of standard, but doesn't have any structural problems. So you're saving about, say, 30,000 pounds there if the property is 130,000 ordinarily. Now, let's say it cost you 30,000 pounds to rectify those problems to make the property structurally sound again. Then how have you benefited? You haven't. You could have just gone and purchased another one down the road that has no issues for the same price. But let's say the ordinary market price is 150,000, but now buying it at 100,000, spending 30,000 and getting it right, you've still made 20,000 pounds of profit for your efforts. So that's the first thing I look for. Actually, is there any profit in what we're going to do? Secondly, we've got to look at, once we've got the numbers, is to see, actually, is this a problem we can resolve? Is it something we can fix? And is it something that we can fix with confidence? So, for example, if you have no experience of investing in property, you've never purchased any property, renovated, flipped any property before, then starting off as your first property with structural issues is probably not the best place to start, because you're going into the realms where more experienced investors will probably be venturing into those type of deals. Because there's so many things that you have to learn on your basic deals, let alone going in with a complex deal with structural problems. And if you've got people around you that are very experienced, that are supporting you, even if you don't have the experience, then at least you have some confidence that you've got people around you that are going to help you turn this deal around and make it work. So they're really the things I would look for. I'd look for the numbers, first of all. It's actually, is it worth it? Because often we see properties that look cheap on the face of it, like the example numbers I gave earlier on, but what it costs to rectify it, there's no profit in it. You might as well just go and buy one that's already in a similar condition anyway. And then it's a case of actually, can we rectify this problem? Is it on top of, is it worth doing? So I hope that helps. So our next questions from my good friend Mohammed Khalid on Facebook. Do you know which mass texting app I must use to send text by one click? Not quite property related, but I think Text Local is one that we've used. There's probably many others. Maybe if you give me a ring tomorrow, we can have a chat and I can give you a few suggestions. But there's many apps that you could use. Text Local is one that we use, where you load the phone numbers from a spreadsheet into the system, and then you can send out a text from a single phone number. And when we restart our property meet, which we'll be doing on the 9th of November, we'll be using a platform like that, where we can upload all the phone numbers of all our contacts and send out a text to let people know, hey, we're restarting the event, you need to book your ticket nice and early. Because historically, pretty much all our events we've sold out, and people miss out because they leave it last minute. So you need to make sure, one, you've got that date in your diary, and look out for announcements over the next couple of days as well in terms of what we're doing. So let's get our next question up on the screen. This is from Firdaus on YouTube. I have a 5-bed HMO with outbuilding. Can I convert it? And I've lost the question. Can I convert it to another room or separate flat? Is there more to the question? Is that it? Okay, cool. That's fine. So now, if you've got an outbuilding and it's not attached to your property, it's a separate building, then you need to go through planning permission to be able to turn that into some kind of habitable use, residential use, i.e. a flat. And it may be a little bit tricky trying to get planning permission for something like that, especially a separate dwelling. It all depends on where it is, what's around it, what area you're in, what council. All these things are going to impact whether you can actually convert it into a separate dwelling. If it's connected to the building, or you can connect it up and form part of the existing building, so it's not completely separated from it, then it's almost like an extension that you're doing and a conversion. Then really to make it habitable and to comply with the building regulation, to make sure it's usable with today's regs. But to turn it into a separate flat, you'd still need planning permission to create. So essentially, to create an additional dwelling in your home, you need to need planning permission. And actually, just flash that question back up again for me, please, if you can. Did you say it was a HMO? Oh, it's a HMO, yeah. So if it's a HMO, once a property becomes a HMO, you lose some of your permitted development rights as well. So that's another thing you need to be mindful of. So it may be require planning. Of course, it depends on what area you're in as well. So for example, if you got a HMO and you want to put an extension on the back because you think you're just going to use a permitted development rights, now those permitted development rights are with a C3 property. Once it becomes a C4 HMO, those permitted development rights aren't there. So you need to make sure that you do your homework on that in terms of what you can or can't do with the outbuilding. A good planning consultant or a competent architect should be able to help you with that for those. Next question from Zahir on YouTube. Do you think the property market will crash? That's an interesting question. If you asked me when the lockdown started, I would have said definitely we're heading for a crash. If you asked me 6 months ago, I would have said doesn't look like it's going to happen. If you ask me today, I'll say I don't think we're in for a crash right now, because things are changing every day, all the time. And the biggest driver to what's happening to the property market is the government. And they've got lots of levers that they pull and they drive which way they want the property market to go. And those levers are things like interest rates, mortgage products such as 95% mortgage product, first-time buyers. These things really influence and impact the market. Stamp duty holiday, we saw, although that wasn't the sole reason why house prices went through the roof over the last few months, but just the fact that there was a stamp duty holiday initiated and created that push as well. On top of that, 95% mortgages. So all these factors, government controls these. Relaxation in planning as well. All these things have an impact in terms of demand for property, and that drives prices up. So right now, I don't think we're in for a crash. We certainly are. The market has settled a little bit since the end of September, when the final stamp duty finished. Furlough payments have come to an end as well. People that had extended holidays on their bounce back loans, and those will become due soon. So I think the market will start to ease a little bit. Material prices are quite high at the moment for those that are doing renovations, but I certainly don't think the market's going to crash out like we were expecting before. I think it will just settle a little bit, and then I think it will still continue to rise. So overall, this time next year, my view is I think the prices will be higher than they are today. But that's just my guesstimate. We don't have a crystal ball. We don't really know what's going to happen for sure. We can only go by our experience and our gut feeling of what we think is going to happen. Let's get our next question. This is from Tim on LinkedIn. Hi, Saj, do you have any recommendations for the best strategy to pursue with new build apartment? I have a couple of new builds, but lessons learned, it's not the best cash generating assets. How do I maximize it? So Tim, I'm not sure I fully understand the context. If you've already built new build apartments and you've built them, and if you've refinanced them and got your money out of them, then really you're not going to be walking away with any profit. If you create your 25-30% uplift or profit within that deal, but you remortgaged it, your profit is still stuck in the deal. You've got your cash back out to go somewhere else, and you've got some income coming in as well. And yes, you've got these assets for the long term. And just as we were talking about earlier on, often what happens with new build apartments, the prices are here, then they drop slightly before they settle, and they'll go up again over time because they are brand new at that point, and there's a premium attached to those. And if you still have those properties, I'd think about what are other techniques that you could use to increase the amount of income you've got from them? For example, short stay, Airbnb, service accommodation, that type of thing, where you can generate more income from the same units. And if you've got a commercial mortgage, for example, on the whole building, your lender may be okay with you doing that. And let's say you had a block of 20 apartments. I certainly wouldn't turn all 20 into short stay overnight. I would probably test it on 1 or 2 and see how that goes. And if that's going quite well, then maybe gradually trying to roll it out to some of the others as or when the tenants start moving out to some of the other ones. So you gradually increase your cash flow and you build on the economies of scale of having all those units in one place. Such things like cleaning and things just become so much easier when they're all in all the apartments in one place. I think that was a question you were asking, Tim. I wasn't 100% sure, but hopefully that's answered the question I think you're asking. So, Kyle, you got a question on TikTok?
Yes, from Engagement. How can you get a halal buy-to-let mortgage?
In terms of buy-to-let mortgages that are considered halal, there's not many lenders in the market. You got Gatehouse Bank and you got Al Rayan Bank. Al Rayan Bank was formerly the Islamic Bank of Britain. They're really the two main lenders that are doing buy-to-let mortgages. There were other lenders, they sometimes come and go as well in the marketplace. There isn't a huge amount of choice out there, and they are quite your options are limited in terms of their criteria as well. For example, the minimum price that the properties have to be using individually in terms of your income, etc. As well. So there isn't a vast amount of choice. It's very, very limited. It's just the nature of the market. I think Islamic finance is quite advanced in the UK, probably the best in Europe. But we are still very, very limited in the number of products that are available to us in that way. So what's next question from Instagram? Ismail, how do you build a strong investor list when deal sourcing? So when you're sourcing deals, finding properties that you're selling on to somebody else for a fee, people talk about them as investors. I wouldn't really consider as investors. I'd call them buyers. These are people that are buying property. Investors are people that I think about as people that invest money with me. They're an investor in my mind. And somebody who buys deals from us, they're essentially a buyer, a landlord. But these terms are interchangeable sometimes in terms of what they mean. So just for clarity there. And I'm guessing what you're talking about is how do you build up a list of people you can sell these properties to? Well, the first thing, with any product we have to think about is, what's our product and who's going to buy it? So with your product, you've got to think about what is it about what you're sourcing that's appealing? Why would somebody buy it from you? So for example, it might be, it's below market value, a certain amount. It could be there's a fantastic yield. It could be somewhere there's an amazing amount of capital growth happening. It could be somewhere that you can run it as service accommodation, produce a really good income. Whatever it is, there's got to be something about the properties that you're sourcing as why people will want them. That's the first thing. So you've got a product, you've got something about that product that people want. Then you've got to get that message out to people so people know this is the thing that you do. So they get to know you as the person, the go-to person for this type of property. So for example, people often will talk to us about building a buy-to-let portfolio in Birmingham or HMO properties in Birmingham, and they'll come and talk to us about that because they know we have a vast amount of experience doing those type of things. So the same way you build your reputation around what it is that you do. And then with with your, as you call investors or I call buyers, you have to think about qualifying them, because essentially what you're saying is, oh, I source property of this particular type. Raise your hand if you're interested. People say, yeah, I'm interested. Metaphorically speaking, that could be online, it could be on emails, telephone conversations, face-to-face meetings, however it is. They're expressing an interest. Say, hey, I'm interested. If you're sourcing that kind of thing, I might be interested in buying that kind of property. But the thing you need to do is qualify them. You need to qualify to see that actually, are they genuinely able to buy and willing to buy? Because if they're not able to buy or they're not willing to buy, they might be interested, but they're not going to be a customer for you. So it's not just about building a list of people that might buy property from you. It's having a list of warm prospects that are likely to buy property from you, and then taking the time to spend time with them, whether it's on the phone, whether it's face to face, to learn about them, learn about their criteria, so that when you've got the right property for them, you can ring them up and say, hey, Mr. Investor, we spoke about you investing in a potential deal that looks like this. I might have something that could be a perfect fit for you. And then really that opportunity should fit like a glove. I think that's I found in my experience, that's the best approach when it comes to selling deals on that you are sourcing. So I hope that helps. And if you're sourcing in Birmingham, then definitely talk to us. We're always interested in property deals in and around Birmingham. And that can be anything from bog standard properties, as long as we see there's an opportunity there for us to make money, or some of our clients and partners to make money from. Commercial buildings, whether people are looking to sell those, or they want to partner with us on those, we quite happily come in and convert those, renovate those properties, improve them, as long as there's a win-win for everybody. If it's land, if it's potential properties that can be used as HMOs, we're always open. So if you've got deals in and around Birmingham, come and have a chat to us. We're interested in those deals. And I said our property meeting is restarting on the 9th of November. So make sure you've got that date in your diary. It's the best property meeting in the country. Outside of London, certainly the largest property meet to meet 100 plus property people every single month. And previously, when we were running these meetings, it's coming up to nearly 2 years. We were talking about earlier on, since the last meeting that we had, pre-lockdown, pretty much every meeting was sold out before the actual event. So sometimes people leave it late and think, oh, I'll get my ticket a day before or on the day, and there are no tickets left. They're all gone. Because there's only so much capacity we have at the venue. So it's really important that you've got that date in your diary and listen out for the social media posts about getting your tickets, which will be available this week to buy. So, but make sure you look out for those messages.
Just an add-on to the previous question on TikTok, how do you apply for the Inner Circle?
How do you apply for the Inner Circle? So you can go to my website up here, sajhussain.com. And on that website, there should be a section about mentoring. There's a video there that kind of briefly explains how it works, and also an application form there as well. So you can complete the application form. It'll come to us. One of our team will have a look at it, discuss it with me, and then we'll come back to you to either arrange a call to explore it further, or it might even be a case of we think maybe it might not be right for you. As I said, it's not for everybody. I try and cherry pick people I think I can really help and support and make a difference to. It's not one of those programs that anybody that applies, that can pay, that joins. No, because for me, it's really important that we are supporting the people, helping them get the best results possible. Next question.
Cheeky one from me.
Cheeky one from you. Businessman of the Year, Saj Hussain. Thank you very much. So I'll be nominated by the Birmingham Awards for Businessman of the Year as a finalist, which is amazing. I've blown away just knowing that I've been nominated. And the voting finishes today, so the last chance to vote. And I think in my bio, there's some links there as well to take you straight to that link. And if you can vote for me, I really appreciate it. So yeah, thank you for that. And that's it. So job done. We are running over anyway. So thank you so much for joining me here. I look forward to seeing you back here next Monday. And I said, make sure you have the 9th of November in your diary. And whatever it takes, make sure you are able to get to Birmingham in the evening, because we are relaunching our property meet. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you very soon.